A girl boarded the wrong shuttle at the airport, unaware the quiet man beside her owned the entire airline. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get started. Imagine this. You're rushing through an airport, late for your flight, feeling the pressure of time ticking away. The weight of everything you've put off, every missed opportunity, and the uncertainty of your future are all piled up in your chest. This was the reality for Emily, a young woman whose life felt like a never-ending race against the clock. She had just finished a grueling interview in the city, one that she thought might be her big break. But now, as the minutes slipped by, she found herself with no choice but to take the first shuttle she could find, hoping it would somehow get her to the terminal in time. Her hands shook as she fumbled with her ticket, scanning the numbers, and she finally found her seat in the crowded shuttle. She didn't think much of it, too focused on getting to her gate. There, in the corner, she saw a man sitting alone, his eyes glued to his phone. He was dressed in a simple gray suit, neatly pressed, but there was an air of quiet authority about him. He was the kind of person you couldn't quite place, someone who didn't need to stand out, but did anyway. She hesitated, then slipped into the seat beside him, trying not to disturb him. She mumbled a quick, hello, but he barely looked up, acknowledging her with a small, almost imperceptible nod. She tried to focus on her phone, but her mind kept wandering. The quiet hum of the shuttle and the soft chatter of passengers around them made her feel more isolated. It wasn't long before the shuttle jolted into motion, the wheels turning slowly beneath them. Emily tried to settle her nerves, but the uncertainty of the situation kept her restless. Her thoughts went back to the interview, the sleepless nights she had spent preparing, the sacrifices she had made to get to this point. She could feel her anxiety rising as they passed through the busy airport roads. "Excuse me," she finally said, breaking the silence. The man beside her glanced up, his eyes briefly meeting hers. "Yes?" he asked, his voice smooth but distant. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry if I'm bothering you. I know it's a bit awkward, but I'm Emily." "No problem, Emily," he replied, his tone neutral. Emily didn't know why, but there was something about his voice that made her want to keep talking. "I've been trying to get to this meeting for days, and now I'm just hoping to make it in time." She paused, unsure why she was telling him this. Maybe it was the anxiety or the fact that he didn't seem to mind her talking. He nodded, his gaze never fully leaving his phone. "What do you do?" he asked, after a beat of silence. Emily hesitated for a moment before answering. "I work in marketing. Nothing glamorous, but it pays the bills." She looked over at him, waiting for him to share more, but he remained quiet, his attention still divided. The shuttle rattled along, and Emily felt the familiar feeling of disappointment settle in. She had been talking about herself too much. But before she could say anything else, she glanced at the man beside her again. There was something about him, something that seemed to shift in the air around them. She couldn't put her finger on it, but he wasn't just anyone. As the shuttle neared the terminal, she looked back at him once more. Something in his demeanor had changed, just slightly. She could feel the curiosity bubbling inside her, but she didn't ask. Instead, she simply nodded and murmured, "Thanks." As she got off the shuttle, she turned back to see him still sitting there, absorbed in his phone. Little did Emily know, this was just the beginning of an encounter that would change everything. I'm sure Emily never expected what would happen after their brief encounter on the shuttle. She walked through the terminal, trying to shake off the awkwardness that still lingered from the conversation. As she made her way to her gate, she couldn't help but glance back at the man who had sat beside her. He was still in the shuttle, looking down at his phone, as if he hadn't even noticed her departure. A part of her wondered if she had said something wrong, but she quickly dismissed the thought. After all, they had just met. But there was something about him, something she couldn't shake. His calm demeanor, the way he carried himself, it was clear he was no ordinary person. Emily didn't think much of it at the time. She had a flight to catch and a life to get back to. She boarded her plane, sat by the window, and tried to relax as the plane soared into the sky. The rhythmic hum of the engines soon lulled her into a sense of calm. But even as she stared out at the clouds, Her mind kept drifting back to the shuttle ride. The man's face kept resurfacing in her thoughts, and she couldn't quite figure out why. The flight was smooth, and before long, they were descending toward their destination. As Emily disembarked, she quickly checked her phone. She had a few messages, but nothing out of the ordinary. It wasn't until she was exiting the airport that she received an unexpected text from an unfamiliar number. The message simply read, "Hi Emily, this is Liam. We met on the shuttle earlier today. I know this is unexpected, but I'd like to meet up for coffee sometime. Let me know if you're interested." She blinked at the message in disbelief. Liam? The man from the shuttle? She didn't know what to make of it. Why would he want to meet her? They barely exchanged more than a few words. She quickly typed a response, trying to keep her tone casual. "Hi Liam, I'm surprised to hear from you. Sure, coffee sounds nice. When are you free?" She hit send before she could second-guess herself. It wasn't long before he replied, "How about tomorrow? I know a great place near your area." Emily felt a strange mix of excitement and uncertainty. She had no idea where this was going, but there was something intriguing about the invitation. The next day, they met at a cozy cafe in the city. Emily arrived first, a little nervous, unsure of what to expect. She spotted Liam almost immediately. He was already seated at a table by the window, looking calm as ever. His presence seemed to fill the room in an understated way. As she walked over, he looked up and gave her a warm smile, standing up to greet her. "Hi, Emily," he said, his voice as smooth and composed as she remembered. "Thanks for meeting me." "Of course," Emily replied, smiling back, though she still couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. "I wasn't sure why you wanted to meet up, but I'm glad we could do this." Liam gestured for her to sit, and as she did, he immediately began to make small talk. They talked about everything, his travels, her work, life in the city. Emily found herself laughing more than she expected, feeling at ease despite the initial tension. As the conversation continued, Liam's questions turned more personal. He asked about her dreams, her career aspirations, and what made her passionate about her work. Emily shared her hopes of eventually becoming a leader in her field, but also her doubts about whether she could ever get there. Liam listened intently, nodding along as she spoke. There was something deeply comforting about his attention. When they finished their coffee, Liam surprised her by suggesting they go for a walk. It was a beautiful day, and Emily agreed, happy to continue the conversation outside. As they strolled through the park, the world seemed to fade away. They talked about everything and nothing, and by the time they parted ways, Emily felt a strange connection. She still didn't know much about him, but something in her gut told her he was different. Over the next few days, their conversations continued. They met for lunch, exchanged messages, and began to talk about their lives in more depth. But Emily still had no idea what Liam did for a living. He was vague when asked, always shifting the subject to her interests. It wasn't until one evening, when they were having dinner at a restaurant, that Emily would learn the truth. As they were finishing their meal, a man walked by their table and greeted Liam with a friendly handshake. Emily didn't recognize him, but the man seemed to know Liam very well. "Liam, it's good to see you again," the man said. Liam smiled politely and introduced him as an old friend. But Emily couldn't help but feel like there was more to the interaction than met the eye. As the man walked away, Emily turned to Liam with a curious expression. "Who was that?" she asked. Liam smiled, but this time there was a hint of hesitation in his eyes. "Actually," he began, "I've been meaning to tell you something. There's something I should have shared earlier, but I wanted to make sure we got to know each other first. I own the airline you flew on the other day." Emily blinked, unsure if she had heard him right. "What?" "I know this is probably a shock," Liam continued, "but I've been wanting to talk to you about something. There's an opportunity one think you'd be perfect for." Emily's mind was racing, but all she could do was stare at him in disbelief. I'm sure Emily didn't expect the truth to hit her like it did that evening. She sat there, frozen for a moment, unable to process what Liam had just said. "You own the airline," she repeated, almost as if testing the words to see if they made sense. Liam gave a small, almost nervous smile as he nodded. "Yes, I do. I didn't want to bring it up before, but now that we've been spending more time together, I felt it was time to tell you." Emily stared at him in disbelief, the weight of his words slowly sinking in. She had just been talking to the owner of an entire airline like he was any other man on a shuttle. It felt surreal, like something out of a dream. "I know this probably comes as a shock," Liam continued, sensing her confusion. But I've been watching you, Emily. Watching how hard you work, how driven you are, and how passionate you are about your dreams. That's why I wanted to offer you something. Emily was still trying to wrap her mind around the fact that the quiet man beside her wasn't just a regular businessman, but the owner of a massive empire. She tried to focus on his words, but it felt like everything was spinning. What do you mean? She finally asked, her voice barely a whisper. I think you're someone who has a lot of potential. Emily, Liam said, his voice calm and steady. I've been thinking about starting a new project, something that aligns with the values I care about, building opportunities for people like you. People who have the passion but not always the resources to get started. Emily blinked, still unsure of what he was saying. I want you to join me in this venture, Liam said. I'm offering you a chance to work with me, to help me build something new. You've got the skills, the drive, and the heart. And I believe that's exactly what this company needs. Emily's heart raced as she tried to process everything. She had come to this city with nothing but hope, a small bag of belongings, and a dream of something better. Now, Liam, a man she had barely known a few days ago, was offering her an opportunity that could change her life forever. I don't know what to say, she stammered, still in shock. You don't have to say anything right now, Liam replied gently. Take your time. Think it over. I know it's a lot to digest, but I think you're the right person for this. And even if you decide it's not for you, I want you to know I'm still glad we met. Emily couldn't believe it. A part of her wanted to say no, to walk away from this overwhelming offer, but another part of her, the part that had always believed in second chances, in working for a better life, knew this was the kind of opportunity she couldn't pass up. The next few days were a whirlwind. Emily spent hours thinking about Liam's offer, trying to weigh her options. She had always dreamed of doing something bigger, of breaking free from the cycle of struggle that had defined her life so far. But this was different. This was a chance to work with one of the most powerful men in the industry, to build something from the ground up. She wasn't sure if she was ready, but the more she thought about it, the more she realized that she might never get another chance like this. So, after much deliberation, Emily finally made up her mind. She would accept Liam's offer. The next time they met, Emily was ready. She walked into the cafe, feeling a sense of determination she hadn't felt in a long time. Liam was already there, waiting for her, his usual calm demeanor present. As soon as he saw her, he stood up and smiled. Emily, I'm glad you came, he said, his voice warm and welcoming. I've been looking forward to this. I've thought about it, Emily said, taking a deep breath. And I'm in. I want to work with you. I want to be part of this project. Liam's eyes lit up with genuine happiness, and for a moment, Emily saw a glimpse of the man behind the powerful business persona. I knew you would be, he said, his smile widening. I'm glad you made that decision, Emily. You won't regret it. From that moment on, Emily's life began to change. She threw herself into the new project with all her energy, learning from Liam and the team he had put together. It wasn't easy, but it was exactly what she had been searching for. Every day brought new challenges, new lessons, and new opportunities to prove herself. And as she worked alongside Liam, she began to see him in a new light, not just as the owner of a massive company, but as a man who genuinely cared about the people he worked with, who wanted to make a difference. Emily found herself growing, not just professionally but personally as well. Liam's support and guidance helped her realize that she was capable of more than she had ever imagined. And as they spent more time together, Emily started to feel a connection to him that went beyond the professional. It wasn't long before their relationship began to evolve, and as they continued to work side by side, Emily realized that the opportunity Liam had given her was not just a career-changing moment. It was the beginning of a new chapter in her life, one filled with possibilities she had never dreamed possible. I'm sure Emily had no idea just how much her life was about to change when she accepted Liam's offer. The first few weeks working alongside him were a blur of activity, learning, and growing. The project he had in mind was ambitious, to say the least. It wasn't just about starting a new venture. It was about revolutionizing the way people viewed the airline industry, creating a more personalized, customer-focused experience. Emily threw herself into the work, staying late at the office, brainstorming new ideas, and figuring out how to bring Liam's vision to life. She found herself challenged in ways she hadn't imagined, but there was something thrilling about it. It was exactly the kind of work she had dreamed of doing, But she never thought she'd be here, doing it with Liam, the man she had only just met not so long ago. As they spent more time together, Emily noticed a shift in their relationship. It wasn't just about work anymore. They began to share more personal moments, talking about their hopes, their fears, and their dreams outside of the office. Emily learned that Liam had come from a humble background, working his way up in the business world. He didn't come from wealth. He had built everything from the ground up, just like she was trying to do. That common ground created a bond between them, one that Emily hadn't expected but welcomed. Liam, in turn, seemed to appreciate her dedication, her passion, and the way she approached challenges. It wasn't just her work ethic that impressed him. It was the way she thought, the way she questioned things, and the way she always tried to find a better way to do things. As the months passed, their connection deepened. Emily could feel herself growing not just as a professional, but as a person. She started taking on more responsibility in the company, leading meetings, making decisions, and even pitching new ideas to the team. Liam was always there, guiding her, but he also gave her the space to grow. One evening, after a long day at the office, Liam asked Emily to stay behind. "I want to show you something," he said, his tone serious but inviting. Emily followed him to a small conference room at the back of the office. Inside, the lights were dimmed, and on the wall was a projection of the airline's future plans, new routes, new services, a new approach to customer care. "This is the vision," Liam said, standing beside her. "This is where I see us going, and I want you to be a part of it." Emily's heart raced as she looked at the plans. It was bigger than anything she had imagined, more ambitious than she ever thought possible. And yet, as she looked at the vision, she realized something. She was ready. She was ready to be a part of this. She was ready to take that leap, not just in her career, but in her life. She turned to Liam, her voice steady but full of emotion. "I'm in," she said, her eyes meeting his. Liam smiled, a rare smile that reached his eyes. "I knew you would be," he replied. "You're exactly what this company needs." That night, after the meeting, they walked out of the office together, side by side. The city was alive with the buzz of late-night traffic, the sound of people going about their business. But Emily couldn't focus on anything but the feeling of possibility that was suddenly so real. As they walked, Liam turned to her. "Emily, there's something I've been meaning to ask you," he said, his voice a little softer than usual. She looked up at him, her heart skipping a beat. "What is it?" she asked, curious. "I've been thinking about this for a while," he began, his words measured. "I've watched you grow, I've seen your potential, and I want to ask you something important. Not just for work, but for us." Emily felt her stomach flutter, a wave of nervousness washing over her. What was he about to say? Liam paused for a moment, and when he spoke again, his words were clear, full of conviction. "Emily, I think we're on the brink of something big here, both in business and in life. I know this might be unexpected, but I want you to know that I'm here, not just as your boss, but as someone who believes in you. I believe in us." Emily stood there, stunned for a moment. Was this really happening? She had never expected this. Never imagined that someone like Liam, the owner of the airline, would see her as more than just a colleague. But as she looked into his eyes, she realized that he wasn't just talking about business anymore. This was about something more. "Liam, she started, unsure of what to say. But before she could finish, he took a step closer, his voice soft but firm. "Emily, I'm asking if you'd be willing to take a chance on something more. Something beyond just work. Will you give us a chance?" Emily felt her heart pounding in her chest, but there was a warmth spreading through her as she thought about everything they had shared, everything they had built together. Without thinking, she nodded. "Yes," she said, her voice steady. "I'm willing to take that chance." The moment hung between them, and as they stood there, under the city lights, they both knew that this was only the beginning. A new chapter was unfolding, and it was one they would write together. I'm sure. Emily never thought things would progress so quickly. After that night, when she agreed to give her and Liam a chance, everything changed. The dynamic between them shifted, moving from professional respect to something much deeper. It wasn't just about work anymore. It was about building something together. Every day, Emily felt like she was stepping into a new role, not just as an employee, but as a partner in a vision she had never thought possible. The project they were working on together took off faster than anyone had expected. Liam trusted her more and more, allowing her to make key decisions that would ultimately shape the future of the company. She was given more responsibility, and with it, a deeper sense of purpose. Emily wasn't just contributing to the success of the company anymore. She was helping to redefine the entire industry. But even as things flourished professionally, there was something else at play. The connection between her and Liam grew stronger, and the line between business and personal began to blur. One evening, after a long day of meetings and strategic planning, Liam asked Emily to stay behind once again. This time, there was a shift in his tone, a softness she hadn't heard before. "I need to talk to you about something," he said, his voice uncharacteristically uncertain. Emily looked up from her notes, her heart racing. "What is it?" she asked, not sure what to expect. Liam looked at her for a moment, as if gathering his thoughts. "You've been incredible," he started, his voice steady but quiet. "You've put so much into this project, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. I've always believed in you, Emily, but lately, I've been feeling something more. Something beyond business." Emily's pulse quickened as she realized where this conversation was going. She had felt it too, the shift, the change in how they interacted. But hearing him say it out loud made it all the more real. "Liam, she started, unsure how to voice the whirlwind of emotions she was feeling. "I care about you," he interrupted softly. "Not just as a colleague, but as someone I've come to trust, someone I've come to care for deeply." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She had known there was something between them, something undeniable, but hearing him admit it out loud made her stomach flutter. For a moment, the room felt smaller, the noise of the office and the city outside disappearing. "Liam," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I care about you too." There was a brief silence before Liam took a step closer, his eyes locked with hers. "I don't want to rush things," he said, his voice gentle. "But I don't want to keep pretending either. I think we both know what's been building here." Emily felt her heart swell. She had never imagined this kind of connection with someone, especially not with someone like Liam. She had come into this job thinking it was just a career opportunity, a chance to escape the struggle of her past. But now, it was so much more than that. It was a chance at something real, something genuine. "I don't want to rush either," she said, stepping closer to him. "But I also don't want to let this slip away." Liam smiled, the warmth of his expression reaching his eyes. "Then let's not. Let's take this one step at a time, together." And just like that, everything changed. The barriers between them dissolved, and they were no longer just business partners, but something more. The following weeks were a whirlwind of excitement and challenges, as they navigated their new relationship while continuing to build the company. It wasn't easy, balancing the personal and professional, but they made it work. There were moments of uncertainty, moments when Emily wondered if they were doing the right thing. But every time she looked at Liam, she knew she had made the right choice. Together, they were unstoppable. As the months passed, the company grew stronger, and so did their bond. They celebrated successes, faced setbacks, and supported each other through it all. And as they stood on the brink of even greater things, Emily knew that the journey they had started together was just beginning. What started as a chance encounter on a shuttle had led them here, to a place where both their professional dreams and personal lives were intertwined in a way neither of them had ever expected. And Emily, for the first time in a long time, felt like she had found not just a career, but a home, a place where she truly belonged. And it was with Liam, the man who had changed her life in more ways than one, that she knew she had found her future. I'm sure Emily never imagined how much her life would change in such a short amount of time. After agreeing to take things further with Liam, everything seemed to fall into place, but it wasn't without its challenges. As the weeks passed, their relationship grew stronger, both in their personal lives and at work. They continued to lead the company, making crucial decisions together, and it wasn't long before they had to face their first real test. It came one morning when Emily received a call that would turn everything upside down. It was from one of the company's major investors, and his tone was far from reassuring. "Emily, we need to talk," he said, his voice tight. "There's been a shift in the market, and we're going to need to make some drastic changes if we want to stay afloat. I think it's time to consider cutting some corners." Emily could feel the weight of the words hanging in the air. Cutting corners? The company had come so far, and the idea of losing everything they had worked for made her stomach churn. She glanced at her phone, seeing a message from Liam. They were supposed to meet for lunch, but she knew this conversation would have to take priority. "I'll be in touch," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Hanging up, she felt a knot tighten in her chest. She knew this wasn't going to be easy. When Liam walked into the office later that day, Emily was already at her desk, her mind racing. "Liam," she said as he walked in, "we've got a problem." He sat down across from her, his face calm, but she could see the concern in his eyes. "What's going on?" Emily explained the situation with the investor, her voice tinged with frustration. "He's suggesting we make cuts, compromise on quality, and it feels like everything we've worked for could go down the drain. I don't know what to do." Liam was silent for a moment, processing the information. Then, he leaned forward, his gaze focused. "We're not going to compromise. We've built this company on trust, on quality, and we won't throw that away just to save a few dollars. We'll find another way." Emily felt a rush of relief wash over her. She knew that Liam wasn't just a businessman. He was someone who cared deeply about what they were building together. "But how?" she asked, still unsure of how they could navigate this challenge. Liam smiled, the kind of smile that made Emily feel like they could conquer anything together. "We get creative. We look at other ways to cut costs without sacrificing what matters most. And we bring our team in on it. They're part of this too." Emily felt a renewed sense of hope. With Liam by her side, she knew they could find a solution. Over the next few weeks, they worked tirelessly, meeting with the team, brainstorming ideas, and strategizing how they could weather the storm. They came up with a plan that not only kept the quality intact, but also introduced new ways to improve efficiency and reduce unnecessary expenses. It wasn't easy, but they managed to keep the company on track, and in doing so, they proved that their values were stronger than any financial challenge. As the company began to stabilize, Emily realized that she had learned something invaluable. It wasn't just about business or success. It was about standing by your principles, even when the world around you was telling you to do otherwise. One night, after a particularly long meeting, Liam and Emily found themselves alone in the office, going over the final numbers. The stress of the past few weeks had taken its toll, and Emily felt exhausted, but she also felt proud of what they had accomplished. Liam stood up and stretched, then turned to her. "I'm glad we're in this together," he said, his voice softer than usual. Emily looked up at him, surprised by the sincerity in his words. "Me too," she replied, her heart swelling. They stood there for a moment, the weight of everything they had been through hanging between them. But in that moment, Emily realized something else. They weren't just colleagues anymore. They weren't just business partners. They were something more. "Liam," she said softly, her voice filled with emotion. "I want you to know, I'm really grateful for everything you've done. For me, for the company, for us." Liam smiled, a look of tenderness in his eyes. "Emily, you're more than just my partner in business. You're everything to me." There it was, the moment they both knew had been coming. The connection between them was undeniable, and it had grown stronger with every challenge they faced. Emily stepped closer to him, her heart racing. "I feel the same," she whispered. Without another word, Liam took her hand in his, and in that instant, it felt like the world had finally aligned. They had overcome the obstacles, together, and now it was time to take that next step. They were no longer just two people trying to make their way in the world. They were a team, in every sense of the word, and their journey was just beginning. I'm sure Emily had no idea what was coming when she walked into the office that day. The past few months had been a whirlwind of success, growth, and excitement, both personally and professionally. Her relationship with Liam had blossomed, and they had grown closer than ever before. The company was thriving, and the team had come together stronger than ever, thanks to their shared vision. But that morning, as Emily entered her office, she felt a strange tension in the air. The phone rang, interrupting her thoughts, and she quickly answered it, not realizing that this call would set everything into motion. "Emily, we need to talk," said a familiar voice on the other end. It was Richard, one of the key investors in the company. His tone was serious, and Emily could hear the urgency in his voice. "What's going on?" she asked, her heart already racing. "There's been a shift in the market, and we're facing some serious challenges," Richard explained. "I don't know how much longer we can keep going at this pace. We may need to make some tough decisions." Emily's stomach dropped. She had known that the industry was volatile, but she never expected things to turn so quickly. "What do you mean?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. I think it's time we consider bringing in new leadership, Richard said. Someone with more experience in navigating these kinds of crises. It might be time for Liam to step down. Emily's heart sank. Liam had been the driving force behind everything they had accomplished. He was the reason the company had gotten to where it was today. The idea of him stepping down was unthinkable. I don't agree with that, Emily said, her voice sharp. Liam has been the heart and soul of this company. We're not going to give up on him now. Richard's voice was cold, almost dismissive. I'm just telling you what I think is best. You're going to have to make a decision. The call ended abruptly, leaving Emily in a state of shock. She couldn't believe what she had just heard. Liam, the man she had come to trust more than anyone, was being asked to step down. The thought of it felt like a betrayal, and she didn't know what to do next. She knew she had to talk to Liam, but she also knew that this was going to change everything. The next few hours were a blur. Emily tried to keep her composure, but inside, she was a mess. She couldn't stop thinking about what Richard had said. She knew that the investors had a lot of power, but she also knew that Liam had worked tirelessly to build the company. He deserved better than this. When Liam walked into the office that afternoon, Emily knew she had to tell him the truth. She couldn't keep this from him. Liam, she said, her voice trembling. We need to talk. Liam looked up, sensing the gravity in her tone. What's going on? He asked, walking over to her desk. Emily took a deep breath and told him everything. She explained the call with Richard and the pressure the investors were putting on them. Liam listened in silence, his face expressionless. When she finished, he was quiet for a long time, as if processing what she had just said. Finally, he spoke. Emily, I knew this day would come, he said quietly. I always knew the investors would want more control, but I never expected it to happen like this. Emily felt her heart ache. She wanted to fix it, to make it right, but she knew that this was bigger than both of them. I'm not going to give up on you, Liam, she said firmly. We've worked too hard to get here. I won't let them take that away from you. Liam smiled, a small but genuine smile. I appreciate that, Emily. But sometimes, the best thing we can do for the company is to let go. I don't want to hold you back from your future. You've got more potential than you realize. Emily felt a lump in her throat. She didn't want to lose him, not as a partner, not as someone who had been by her side every step of the way. But she knew he was right. They both had to make difficult choices. But we built this together, she said softly. We're not just a business. We're a team. Liam nodded, his eyes filled with understanding. We are. And that's why I'm asking you to keep pushing forward. You've got everything it takes to lead this company. It's time for you to take the reins. The words hit Emily like a punch to the gut. She wasn't sure if she was ready, but she knew he was right. She had to take the next step, not just for the company, but for herself. Okay, she whispered, her voice breaking. I'll do it. But I won't forget what we've built. I won't let anyone take that away from us. Liam's smile widened. I know you won't, he said, his voice warm and reassuring. And whatever happens, you'll always have my support. That was the moment Emily realized just how much she had grown. She wasn't just a part of the company anymore. She was the future, and she was ready to lead. I'm sure Emily had no idea what the next few weeks would bring, but it was clear from the start that this was her moment. After Liam had stepped back, she was left standing at the forefront, facing the company's biggest challenge yet. The investors had made their demands, the pressure was mounting, and Emily knew that this was no longer just about keeping the company afloat. This was about redefining the future, not just for herself, but for everyone who had worked so hard to get here. She could feel the weight of it all, but there was something in her, something deep down, that told her she was ready. She had to be. The first board meeting after Liam's departure was like nothing she had ever experienced before. As she walked into the conference room, the cold stares from some of the investors made her stomach churn. They were skeptical, and who could blame them? Liam had been the face of the company, the visionary. But now, it was her turn to prove herself. She took a deep breath and sat at the head of the table. For the first time, it was her voice that would set the tone. I know this is a difficult transition, Emily began, her voice steady but strong. But we've built something incredible here, and I believe we're just getting started. I won't let that go to waste. She glanced around the room, meeting the eyes of the investors who had once been so supportive of Liam's leadership. We've faced challenges before, and we've come out stronger every time. This time will be no different. The room was silent for a moment, the tension palpable. Finally, Richard, one of the lead investors, spoke. You're asking us to trust you, Emily. But how do we know you're the right person to lead this company through such uncertain times? Emily's heart raced, but she held her ground. I may not have been in charge before, but I've been here since the beginning. I know this company inside and out. I know its values, its mission, and I'm not going to let it fall apart now. There was a long pause as the investors exchanged looks. Emily could feel their doubt, their hesitation, but she refused to back down. This was her time to lead. I've already started working with our team to create a strategy that will strengthen our position in the market, she continued. We'll focus on innovation, customer experience, and efficiency. But we won't compromise on quality. Not now, not ever. Slowly, the tension in the room began to lift. Emily could see the shift, the quiet realization that she wasn't just a placeholder. She was a leader. They were starting to see her not as Liam's replacement, but as her own person, with her own vision. After the meeting, Emily felt a sense of relief wash over her. It wasn't over, not by a long shot, but she had taken the first step. She had earned their trust, or at least, she had begun to. But as she sat at her desk, looking over the company's future plans, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Liam. Emily hesitated for a moment before opening it. I know you've got this, the message read. But remember, you're not alone in this. I'm always here if you need me. A wave of gratitude and sadness washed over her. Liam had stepped back for the good of the company, but his support never wavered. She knew she couldn't have come this far without him. But now, it was time to carve out her own path. Emily spent the next few days immersed in work, meeting with the team, refining the strategy, and putting plans in motion. But there were still moments of doubt. There were days when the weight of everything felt too much to bear, when the pressure from the investors seemed like it might break her. On those days, she thought of Liam's message. She thought of the faith he had in her, the belief that she could do this. And that kept her going. As the weeks passed, Emily began to see the fruits of her labor. The company started to stabilize, the new strategy began to show results, and the team rallied around her. She wasn't just managing the company anymore, she was leading it. But even as things began to fall into place, Emily knew that the hardest part was still ahead. She had made it through the first hurdle, but there were still bigger challenges to face. And yet, as she stood there, looking out over the city from her office, she felt something shift inside her. For the first time, she wasn't just thinking about the company. She was thinking about her future. And for the first time, she realized that the woman she had become was someone she could be proud of. She wasn't just a survivor of her circumstances. She was a leader in her own right. And she was ready to face whatever came next. I'm sure Emily could hardly believe how far she had come. The company was stronger than ever, and her leadership had proven to be the catalyst for its success. The investors who had once been skeptical now looked to her with respect, and the team rallied behind her with an energy she hadn't seen before. It wasn't just the business that had changed, she had changed too. Her confidence had grown, and with it, her sense of purpose. But even with all the successes, there was still one thing that weighed on her heart, her future with Liam. They had spent so much time working side by side, building the company together, and their bond had deepened beyond the professional. But despite their growing connection, the complexities of their relationship still loomed over them. Emily knew that she could not ignore the feelings she had for Liam, but she also knew that their path forward had to be more than just business. One evening as they worked late in the office, Emily turned to Liam, her heart racing. The weight of the unspoken words between them felt heavier than ever. Liam, we need to talk, she said, her voice quiet. Liam looked up from his laptop. His expression softened with concern. What's on your mind? He asked. Emily took a deep breath, gathering the courage to say what had been on her heart for so long. I've been thinking a lot about us, about everything we've been through together. And I need to know where we stand. Liam stood up and walked over to her, his eyes filled with understanding. I know we've both been focused on the company, but I think it's time we talk about this too. I've been waiting for you to bring it up. Emily's heart skipped a beat. She had expected this conversation to be difficult, but the fact that Liam had been thinking the same thing made her feel a sense of relief. I care about you, Liam, she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. More than I ever thought I could care about someone. Liam smiled softly, reaching for her hand. I care about you too, Emily. And I've been thinking about this for a while. But I also know that we've both been through a lot, and we don't need to rush into anything. We've got something good here, and I want to see where it goes. Emily nodded, feeling the warmth of his words sink in. She had always been cautious about mixing business and personal life, but with Liam, it felt different. She felt secure in the knowledge that they had built something real, and now it was time to explore it beyond the walls of the office. I agree, she said. Let's take it one step at a time, but I'm ready to take that step with you. From that moment on, everything seemed to fall into place. Emily and Liam continued to work together, side by side, as they had always done. But now, they were also navigating their personal relationship, finding new ways to connect and grow. Their love was built on the same foundation as their business, a deep respect for one another, trust, and a shared vision for the future. As they continued to lead the company to greater heights, they also began to build a life outside of the office. It wasn't always easy, but they were committed to making it work. Emily had never imagined that her journey would lead her to this point. She had started out as just another employee, struggling to make a name for herself, unsure of her place in the world. But now, she was leading a thriving company, building a future with the man she loved. It was more than she had ever hoped for, and it was just the beginning. Months passed, and Emily's leadership continued to shine. The company grew even stronger, and the team flourished under her guidance. But more importantly, her relationship with Liam had evolved into something deeper and more meaningful. They were partners in every sense of the word, not just in business, but in life. As they stood on the balcony of Liam's penthouse one evening, looking out over the city, Emily realized just how far they had come. "We've done it," she said, her voice filled with awe. Liam smiled, wrapping his arm around her. "We've only just begun," he said softly, his eyes filled with love. Emily leaned into him, feeling a sense of peace she had never known before. She had found everything she had ever wanted: success, love, and a future that was filled with endless possibilities. And with Liam by her side, she knew they could conquer anything together.